What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
From the world-famous Blackbird Studios, it's the Rave podcast. And now, Rave X.
Oh, hey there, winners. Thanks for tuning into the show, the Rave podcast, episode 98, Misinformation. I'm your host, Don Cheadle. Boy, let me tell you something, guys. This time of the year is the best time for podcasting because it's a little chilly outside, so you get the heat on, but you don't have the air conditioner, so I don't have to shut off the air conditioner and sweat while I record. I can just kind of enjoy myself, you know. Anyway, Rave X Podcast, episode 98, Misinformation. We got a lot to talk about today, guys, and you know I love the superhero stuff. I love the 1,000-word series where I show you a picture. I love being funny and entertaining, but every once in a while, I like to get a little serious, you know what I mean? So what today's episode is about is some really crazy things that people have said to me that I've gone and researched and found to be incredibly not true. Like, no kernel of truth to it whatsoever, just hardcore misinformation. Now, the difference between misinformation and disinformation is misinformation is smoking hot, isn't she, guys, right? You know, it's funny, every time I say the word misinformation, I think of this girl I used to go to school with in like 3rd and 4th grade. Her name was like Shamika Bynum or something. She's like this black girl with a lot of braids. And she was super standoffish, right? And anytime you asked her something, she'd always end it with, "For your information." I don't know if you guys had that. Maybe it's a Northeast thing. But you'd say like, "Shamika, do you have an extra pen?" And she'd say something like, "I don't bring no extra pens to school. I bring pens to school for myself, for your information." So every time I hear the word misinformation, I think of Shamika Bynum. If she grew up, she probably looked like Martin Lawrence as Shanae. Remember Shanae? Oh, Shanae. But yeah, we're going to talk about some misinformation, man. And the difference is, disinformation is when you tell someone something with no malice intent. Like someone asked you if it was raining out and you said no, but it actually was, but you just hadn't been outside yet. Misinformation is when you kind of know the difference between right and wrong, and you know what you're saying is kind of BS, but you do it anyway because of some type of cognitive dissonance that you can't help yourself. There's like a psychological thing going on with people where they just tell you something crazy when they should know better. The thing that always gets me is, you've got Google on your phone. Why aren't people researching these things? But I like to research things, man, because my allegiance, as I've always said, is to the truth. And to the Galactic Republic, but that's another story. I'm not on any one side of anything, and neither should you. You should be like an umpire behind home plate, calling the balls and strikes. That's all. So we got some good ones for you today, kids. And with that being said, let's dive in. So, last week or a couple of weeks ago, we played a show up in Nashua, New Hampshire at the Nashua Garden, which was a very kind of small place that probably shouldn't have live bands there, but they decided, screw it, we're going to put live bands there. And we played with Able Blood, who's one of my new favorite bands, TFR, Witch Trot. It was just a great night of heavy, heavy music. We went on first. It was kind of a weird show because there wasn't really place for your amps to be, and like I said, people are right up in your face, so the sound was a little weird for me, man. The video's coming out soon, you'll see it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see some pictures now from that evening, but boy, what a great night of music, man, and just amazing. And we got some more shows coming up. I'll get to that after this here podcast. So, Rave X Podcast, episode 98, Misinformation. Let's go to the first one here. This was actually said to me by someone at work, one of my coworkers. This is a few months back, maybe a year ago, when they were starting to roll out the vaccines, you know what I mean? I don't like to talk too much about that, the C-19 stuff, because it's just whatever, guys, it's crazy. But he actually said this to me, he said, "Did you know that nurse who received the first vaccine on live TV is dead now? Do you know that we all gathered around our phones and our TVs and watched a woman get..." And he's going on, and while he's going on, I'm Googling it, and I go, "No, she's alive. Here she is. That was just some misinformation that was spread." And he looked at me, and he goes, "Oh, well, good. I'm happy for her." So the nurse who got the first vaccine on live TV is dead. Guys, not only is she not dead, but she's thriving. She's got a husband. She's got kids. This was just something that someone started saying because they didn't like vaccines. And a lie gets around the world a dozen times before the truth has its chance to put its goddamn shoes on. Google it. She's alive. I went to her Twitter, I went to her Instagram, I went to her Facebook page. She's laughing. She thinks the rumor was funny. She's like, yeah, I tried to not go to work last week, and I said to my boss, have you heard? I'm dead. He said, no, you're not. Let's get to work. She's not dead. She's alive. That was, we're going to chalk that up to horrible misinformation. Well, while we're on the topic of vaccines for the C-19 flu or the whatever flu you want to call it, let's go to this one. Someone actually said this to me. A friend of mine I bumped into on the waiting for the train about a year ago said this to me. Said that they put poison in the vaccines to kill us off. Oh yeah, it was all population control. You guys didn't know that? More specifically, what I've been hearing from people, about a year ago, 8 months ago, was it was something called graphene oxide or graphene oxide or whatever, and it's like this poison that they put in the vaccines. So I did a little research. That's right. Your boy RaveX did a little research. Do you know where this rumor, because it is just a rumor, do you know where it came from? It doesn't even come from America. It comes from Spain. And here's the story. It first pops up on Twitter. I always say, find out where this stuff first pops up at. First pops up on Twitter. It's from Spain. There was a lab in Spain. Someone sent the guy a letter, and it said, hey man, you're about to start handing out vaccines. Don't do it. They're bad. Guy balls up the letter, throws it away. He gets another letter. Hey, man, these vaccines have poison in them. They've got something called graphene oxide in them, man. And it's just the Center for Disease Control trying to kill us all. Don't give out these vaccines, man. Scientist balls up the letter, throws it away. Then he gets another letter. Letter says, I will arrange for you to get a sample of this vaccine early, and if you look under a microscope and you analyze the molecules and the chemicals in this vaccine, you're going to find that this vaccine has graphene oxide in it, and it's going to kill everyone who takes it. So don't give it out. Scientist balls up the letter, throws it away. Next day, he gets a package, a brown paper bag with a little vial in it via a bike messenger. So this is not secure. He opens up the paper bag. It's a little vial, no plastic around the top, no shrink wrap seal, no safety, anything, just a little vial. And on the vial it says, COVID vaccine. So he's like, I'm not even going to look into it because at this point, whatever I find in that vaccine is going to be inconclusive at best. Now, his lab assistant, who was a young girl, had Twitter, had Facebook. She puts on her Twitter, blah, blah, blah. We got the story from an unknown source that the vaccine contains graphene oxide. And, the scientist here didn't look into it. He just said it's going to be inconclusive at best. That's what he said, and that was all that was said. Now, people read it. They went down, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to read what I want to read. COVID vaccine, graphene oxide. And then they started spreading the misinformation. This one we're going to chalk up to not true. Just misinformation. It started on Twitter. Twitter and Facebook, where people put up pictures of their cats and their new shoes and all that dumb stuff. Do not get your information from Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Please. Well, this next one is a doozy, and I really don't even want to get into it because I deal with it every damn day at work. Every damn day? Yes, every damn day at work I deal with this with my crazy coworker, who's actually a good person. I love him. He's a sweetheart. But, he went a little crazy for politics 4 years ago, let's say. I'm not going to get into detail. And you see that happen with a lot of people, A friend of mine's told me that crisis reveals character. So you want to know what someone's made out of, if they're smart, if they're this, if they're that. Wait till a crisis happens and then see how they deal with it. So we had the election. This coworker of mine, the person he wanted to win did not win, let's say that. We had a flu going around. People lost their mind on both sides because crisis will truly reveal your character. Now, we had a little something on January 6th. They called the January 6th insurrection, the January 6th riot, whatever. It was what it was. And it wasn't good, people. All right, it wasn't good. Every day since January 6th, I've had to hear from my coworker, those weren't real Trump supporters. Those were people disguised as Trump supporters to make Trump supporters look bad. And I would always say, all right, let me get this straight. So these were Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and they dressed up like Trump supporters. Mind you, giving Trump $20,000 worth of money for all the Trump gear they bought, right? To storm the Capitol and risk getting tear gassed, shot, arrested, detained, all that stuff to try to stop and overturn an election that they already won. And he would look at me and go, oh, okay. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to be like, none of that makes any sense. So I'm just going to get to the point here. again, go to the start of all of this stuff. The very first time that there's any doubt of who those people were on January 6th, which, by the way, if you watch the January 6th trials, they were all hardcore, super right-wing, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys. Not good people. Not good people. Everyone who went into the Capitol was ID'd and arrested. None of them were Black Lives Matter. None of them were Antifa. Serious misinformation. They've identified all of them. A lot of them would, tell the story and talk and say, hey, look, man, we thought we were rising to the occasion. We thought we were going to take back our country. That's why we did it. They've all admitted to it. It's over, guys. For Christ's sakes, Dick, it's over. But this all starts the very next day when a tiny right-wing AM radio show, I don't even know the guy's name. I couldn't even find his name. He's trying to defend the Trump supporters, and he goes, and by the way, we don't even know who those people really were. Those people could have been anyone. Those people could have been Antifa or Black Lives Matter. We don't know. That is the very first time that pops up on radio or whatever. Since then, it was retweeted something like 100,000 times on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Those weren't Trump supporters. Those were Antifa. Later that night, Laura Ingraham picks up the story from this tiny hole-in-the-wall right-wing AM station, and she says this, and I want you to pay attention, guys, how it goes from doubtful to I know the truth, because that's what we do. She starts off with, I'm getting word that there were some Antifa sympathizers in that crowd, and that a lot of those people, if not all of them, were possibly just dressed up like Trump supporters in disguise. Then later that same day, Tucker Carlson, who I used to have respect for, now I have no respect for Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson picks up the same story and adds to it. Oh, thanks for tuning in to Tucker Carlson tonight. We have breaking word that those weren't Trump supporters. Those were, in fact, Antifa and Black Lives Matter people dressed up as Trump supporters. So you guys see how we have this forced will reality, right? People try to use their will, their free will, to force something into existence and make it reality. This was just some right-wing dude with a tiny... I keep saying this because I want you to understand this. Just some tiny AM radio station. And he gave his opinion because he couldn't accept that all these Trump supporters would do this. Now, my coworker says this all the time. January 7th, I come to work. He says, those weren't Trump supporters. I know for a fact Trump supporters wouldn't do that. And I said, okay, let's just say there's 90 million Trump supporters. How could you possibly know what they're capable of doing? How could you even know what they had for breakfast? And he said, Trump supporters don't wear backpacks and shoes like that. Oh, come on. Really? You know what 90 million people will wear and dress like that? The whole thing is ridiculous. We get something that's reality. We know it's reality and we can't take it. So we try to will an alternate reality into existence because it helps us sleep at night. Doesn't make them bad people. Just makes them a little intellectually weak. January 6th was not Black Lives Matter, Antifa. I researched the F out of this. The only thing that could remotely tie those two groups to the people who stormed the Capitol was when they arrested one kid. He said he was paid by some people who worked for Antifa because they wanted him to film what they knew was going to be a real shit show. That is it. 826 people were arrested and identified, none of which were Antifa or Black Lives Matter. We're going to chalk this one up to hardcore misinformation. All right, guys, we're going to go back to a little bit of hot virus talk. And, the only reason why I've got so many on my list here involving the virus that popped up 2 years ago is because that just kicked the misinformation into overdrive, Someone told me that the guy, and I read this too on Facebook, buddy of mine on Facebook who's a great person. I knew this guy years ago, hardcore anti-vaxxer, and he posted this on Facebook and then got flagged for misinformation, that the guy who invented the PCR test, the PCR virus test, back like in the 90s or whenever he invented this test, he said himself, well, if you keep testing, you'll just get a positive test, or something like, you can't even test for viruses. That's why, So anyway, here's the thing. That guy's dead. And the quote that everyone keeps quoting about, even the guy who came up with the test said it doesn't work. Here's what actually happened, guys. Here's the true story, and I urge you to please research this shit, guys, please. Because some of you just sound like crazy people. In 1997, they interviewed a colleague of the man who invented the PCR test, and what they were actually talking about was HIV and AIDS. And they said, hey, that test that dude, his name's something with a K, like Mueller-Cullis or something like that. They said, hey, that test that he came up with to detect viruses, does that work about AIDS? And the guy said, his colleague, not the man who invented the test, said, well, it doesn't really work for that particular type of virus. And, sometimes if you turn up the testing thing, you can get a positive test on anything. So that's why these tests have to be dialed in properly. But no, this test doesn't work for HIV/AIDS. Somebody took that quote, they cut it up, and they applied it to COVID-19 rapid test today. So you see how misinformation happens, right? You take a quote that someone made for a completely different virus and disease, like 30 years ago. You cut and paste that and you say, see, he even said the tests don't work. Now, if you want to be true, again, the forced will, you're going to use your will to try to force that into existence and make it real. None of you have researched this. My buddy on Facebook, who, God bless him, I love him, he didn't research it at all. He found a little snippet that he liked that proved his point, and he slapped it on there and said, you idiots taking these tests. Guys, do your homework. Chalk this one up again to big time misinformation. And I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. If you can come to me with a compelling case, I'll write you a check for $1,000, but you're not going to be able to. It's going to be your feelings and what you wish was true and what you want to happen, and you're going to roll your eyes and go, Rave, you think you know everything. I always tell my stupid coworker, rolling your eyes and saying my name, Rave. Come on, Rave. Rolling your eyes saying my name, that is not a compelling argument. I want facts, I want dates, I want times, but you can't do it because it goes against your belief that you have. And for some people, they just can't take it. Anyway, let's move on to a good one. The moon landing was staged. Did you guys know that? It was all fake, bro. Government's lying to you. The moon landing was fake and staged. This one's really interesting because you can Google this right now at home. In 1970, there was a book written called Capricorn 1. Yeah, Capricorn 1. It was a book. You can see it. Came out in 1970, 1971. And the whole premise of this book was completely fictional. Just a story, like Harry Potter. It's just a book. And this whole book is about NASA planning a mission to Mars, a manned mission to Mars. And they've got this crew, they've been training for years, they've got it all worked out, they're going to send a bunch of people to Mars. And at the last minute, like a week before they're about to shoot these people up into space, they go, sir, we've got a serious miscalculation. They don't got enough fuel to make it to Mars. They don't got enough food, they don't got enough anything. That shuttle's just going to end up floating around in space. They're going to be lost. We can't send them to Mars. And the guys at NASA says, you know what? We've got too much on the line now. We've got every country in the world watching America about to send these people to Mars. We've got investors and sponsors and this, that, and the other thing. So here's what we have to do. Let's pretend they went to Mars and we'll stage it. We'll have them get on the rocket. The cameras will be looking at them. We'll have them go down a chute. We'll have a sound stage in the basement. And in a year, when we say they finally made it to Mars, we'll take them to Barstow, Arizona, where it looks like Mars. And we'll film them there. And we'll slow it down to look like there's low grade. So you see what I'm saying? It was a book. Now, in 1977, they make this book into a movie with, I think O.J. Simpson was in it, Ernest Borgnine was in it, and the movie was called Capricorn 1. Nobody remembers this book, and no one remembers this movie, but the whole premise was NASA fakes a landing to Mars. And after that book came out, people started talking, and I'm sure there was a few people at a bar that said, wouldn't it be funny if they faked that moon landing just like in the book? But everyone forgets the book, and they only remember the premise and concept of faking a moon landing. Now, the whole thing also was the person who directed the whole fake moon landing was Stanley Kubrick. The reason why Stanley Kubrick was attached to that is because he directed a movie at the time which was mind-blowing. Do you know what that movie was? It had effects like people had never seen before. It was called 2001: A Space Odyssey. So this is how intellectually weak some of our minds are. We don't know the difference between fact and fiction, literally. This was a book called Capricorn 1? Yeah. People talked about it. It faked a landing to Mars. Stanley Kubrick got involved because his movie was so real, people believed it. That would be like me telling you that there was these people called the Rebels, and they're Jedis, and they have lightsabers, and these bad guys called the Empire with this dude who wears this black mask and he breathes real deep. But I don't even know that that's a movie. And I'm telling you it's real. Because my brain is like oatmeal. Yeah, the moon landing. Like, guys, just a lot of this stuff comes from someplace. And it's up to you, if you want the truth, to find out where it comes from. So you've got some right-wing guy who throws out there that they might not be real Trump supporters. You've got a tweet that comes from Spain saying there's poison in the vaccines. You've got someone who takes quotes from 30 years ago and cuts them up to apply to today. And you've got a book and a movie talking about faking a landing to a planet. And we hear all those things, man, and if you're down for that, then you're down for that, and that's what you're going to hear. But they're not true. And it's okay for them to not be true because it doesn't change your life anyway. Some of you people act like if the moon landing was fake, then you should get more money back on your taxes, so you'll fight for it. Or if the earth was flat. I know the earth is flat. It doesn't change anything. I don't care about any of this stuff. But I can tell you one thing, kids. It is serious misinformation. Wow. Well, I hope you learned something, and if some of you hate me, come find me. You know who else you can do? Is you can come find my band, Choose Your Power. That's right, playing at a club called Dusk in Rhode Island, December 11th. Get there at 4 o'clock, kids. It's an early show. Also, you want to hit up a local show? O'Brien's in Alston Rock City, December 20th at 9 o'clock. That's Choose Your Power. Wow, we got all these songs up there now. We got all these live videos up there now on YouTube. Check it out. And hey, if you want to find me because you want to argue with some of my misinformation things, I welcome it. Bring everyone and bring your fucking A game. ravexmusic.bandcamp.com. That's right, ravexmusic.bandcamp.com. You want to hit me up on Facebook to tell me what a shill I am? I can't wait. Facebook.com/ravexmusic. And until next time, kids, that's going to wrap it up for me. Thanks for tuning in. Click like, subscribe, share the show, but don't share the misinformation. Remember this. Believe none of what you hear and believe only half of what you see. My name's Rave X. Enjoy yourself.
That was the Rave X podcast. Be sure to click like and subscribe. For podcasts, new music, and all things Rave X, go to youtube.com and search Rave X Music.